If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support truly helps us continue sharing stories that explore the quiet, complicated, deeply human corners of life. The parts we don't always say out loud, but somehow all recognize within ourselves. Today's story is personal. It isn't meant to shock you. It isn't crafted for drama or spectacle. It's the kind of truth that unfolds slowly, the kind that doesn't explode in a single moment but quietly reshapes you from the inside. My name is Emily Turner. I'm 31 years old. And what I'm about to share isn't just a confession, it's an unraveling. For most of my 20s, I genuinely believed I had everything figured out. I met Jason when I was 19. We were in college. Young, hopeful, still untouched by the sharper edges of adulthood. There's a kind of innocence in that phase of life, a confidence that comes from not yet knowing how fragile certainty can be. He was studying finance. I was majoring in communications. We met during a group project neither of us wanted to be part of. He was organized and methodical. I was creative and talkative. Somehow, the contrast worked. We used to sit on the campus lawn in the late afternoons, textbooks forgotten beside us, mapping out our future like it was a blueprint we could draft and control. We talked about careers, travel, maybe 2 kids someday, a house with a porch swing. Back then, love felt uncomplicated. It felt like choosing someone and simply continuing to choose them every day after. Jason was steady. The kind of steady that feels like safety. He opened doors, remembered the little things, sent good morning texts even when he had early classes. There was no chaos in him, no dramatic swings. Just consistency. At 24, we got married. It wasn't extravagant. A small ceremony. Close friends. Family. White roses. Soft music floating through a modest reception hall. I remember gripping his hands during our vows, both of us nervous, voices trembling with emotion. When he said forever, I believed it completely. Not as a romantic fantasy, but as a promise built on something solid. And in many ways, forever did begin that day. Jason built his career quickly. Discipline was second nature to him. He thrived in structure, in measurable goals, in upward momentum. Within a few years he was doing well, really well. We bought a house in a quiet neighborhood lined with tall trees and identical mailboxes. It wasn't flashy, but it felt like progress. The walls were painted warm neutrals. The kitchen counters were spotless more often than not. We hosted dinner parties, sent holiday cards with carefully posed photos, paid our bills on time, planned responsibly. From the outside, we were the couple people quietly admired. And that's the part no one talks about. How something that looks perfect from the outside can slowly feel hollow from within. At first, I didn't notice the shift. It didn't arrive dramatically. There was no single argument, no betrayal, no explosive fight. It was subtler than that. Like seasons changing so gradually, you don't realize autumn has arrived until the leaves are already on the ground. Jason began working longer hours. Promotions demanded it. More responsibility. Bigger client. Higher stakes. He told me he was doing it for us, for our future. And I believed him. I still do. He wasn't absent out of indifference. He was focused. Even at home, his laptop often rested on his knees, glowing softly in the dim living room. His mind seemed permanently occupied. Spreadsheets, forecasts, deadlines. Conversations became logistical. Did you pay the electric bill? What time is your meeting tomorrow? Can you grab milk on your way home? Efficient. Practical. Functional. But somewhere along the way, we stopped asking each other the deeper questions. What are you afraid of? What do you dream about now? Are you happy? I can't pinpoint the exact moment I began to feel restless. But I remember the first time I felt invisible. It was an ordinary Tuesday night. Jason sat across from me at the dining table, typing, barely glancing up. I was telling him about an idea, maybe going back to school, maybe starting something creative of my own. Something that felt like mine. He nodded absently. That's great, Em. But I could tell he hadn't heard a word. I stopped mid-sentence. Not angrily. Just quietly. That was the first crack. Small enough to ignore. So I did. I told myself this is what marriage becomes. That fireworks aren't sustainable. That passion cools into companionship. That real love is stable, not electric. And we were stable. We didn't fight viciously. There was no cruelty. No dramatic betrayals. Just calm. But calm, without connection, can feel eerily similar to emptiness. The loneliness wasn't loud. It was subtle. It lived in pauses. In glances not fully meeting. In conversations that skimmed the surface but never dove deeper. And then there was Noah. He moved into the neighborhood about 2 years ago. Friendly. Observant. Easy to talk to. The kind of person who actually listened when someone spoke. Not just waiting for their turn, but genuinely absorbing what was said. The first time we had a real conversation was almost accidental. Jason was working late. Noah had stopped by to return a tool he'd borrowed. "Do you want to come in?" I asked casually. We sat in the living room talking about nothing extraordinary. Childhood memories, the strange pressure of turning 30, the gap between who we thought we'd be and who we'd become. Then he asked me something that caught me completely off guard. "Are you happy, Emily?" I laughed lightly. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? He didn't argue. He didn't push. He just tilted his head slightly and said, "Sometimes you look like you're somewhere else." That sentence lingered long after he left. Because he was right. I was somewhere else. Even when sitting in my own home. After that, our conversations became more frequent. Innocent at first. He'd stop by to fix something minor. I'd offer coffee. We'd talk longer than necessary. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible. But it was there. A kind of emotional gravity. I began sharing things I hadn't spoken aloud in years. My fear of disappearing into routine. My doubt about whether I'd chosen love, or simply chosen safety. My quiet craving for something that felt alive. He never judged me. He never tried to solve me. He just listened. And sometimes being truly heard feels more intimate than touch. For months, nothing physical happened. But emotional lines blur long before physical ones do. The night everything changed, Jason was out of town for work. It was raining heavily. The kind of steady downpour that makes the world feel smaller, isolated. The kitchen faucet had been dripping for days. Jason said he'd fix it when he got back. Instead, I texted Noah. He arrived with his toolbox, rain clinging to his jacket. The house felt unusually quiet. He fixed the faucet quickly, efficiently, but neither of us left the kitchen afterward. We stood facing each other in silence. Not awkward silence. Charged silence. He said my name softly. Something shifted inside me. Something I can't fully explain even now. I don't remember who moved first. I only remember the space between us disappearing. When his hand touched mine, it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. And when our eyes locked, I saw the same conflict mirrored there. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't wild. It was inevitable. For a brief second, I could have stepped back. I could have remembered vows, promises, the life we built. Instead, I leaned in. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was slow, careful, almost hesitant. Like we were testing whether the world would collapse if we allowed it. The world didn't end. But something inside me did. Because in that moment, I felt awake. Not just physically, emotionally, intensely, fully present. It wasn't about desire alone. It was about being seen, being understood. Feeling like the version of myself I had quietly buried was suddenly standing in the light again. Afterward, the silence felt heavier. He looked at me and whispered, "This changes everything." He was right. The days that followed were complicated. When Jason called from his trip, guilt wrapped around my throat. I answered cheerfully, asked about his meetings, told him I missed him. And I did miss him. That's the hardest part to admit. Loving someone doesn't make you immune to longing. I tried to avoid Noah afterward. But avoidance has a way of amplifying what you're trying to suppress. When we eventually saw each other again, the air felt different, denser, weighted with everything unspoken. I told myself it was a mistake, a lapse, a moment of weakness. But deep down, I knew it was something that had been building for far longer than a single rainy night. And here's the painful truth. Noah didn't create the emptiness in my marriage. He illuminated it. Jason isn't cruel. He isn't unfaithful. He isn't careless in obvious ways. But somewhere along the line, we stopped choosing each other in the deeper sense. We chose routine, predictability, comfort, and I allowed myself to shrink quietly within that structure. Now I exist in between two realities: the life I built, and the part of myself that feels awakened. Every morning, I sit across from Jason at the breakfast table and wonder if he senses the shift in me, if he notices the subtle difference in my eyes. Sometimes I imagine telling him everything, tearing down the carefully constructed life we've built and facing whatever comes next. Other times, I convince myself I can bury it, let it fade, pretend it never happened. But here's what I've learned. Once you awaken something inside yourself, you can't unknow it. You can't return to the exact version of who you were before. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe honesty will shatter everything before it rebuilds something stronger. Maybe I'll find the courage to confront the quiet distance in my marriage rather than escape it. Maybe Noah will step back. Maybe I will. What I do know is this: the most dangerous truths aren't always the ones that destroy us. Sometimes they're the ones that reveal who we've become and who we've been pretending to be. I'm not proud of my choices, but I can't deny the clarity they forced me to confront. For years, I mistook quiet for happiness. I mistook comfort for connection. I mistook stability for fulfillment. Now I stand at the edge of uncertainty, and for the first time in a long time, I feel painfully, undeniably alive. If you've ever questioned the life you carefully built, if you've ever felt a longing you couldn't fully explain, if you've ever stood at the crossroads between loyalty and desire, then maybe you understand. Sometimes the hardest choice isn't between two people. It's between the version of yourself that feels safe and the one that feels real. And that's where I am now, standing in between.